Hi, Diane. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
So, Diane, as you know, we do a lot of trial work, right? And what is it about public speaking and witnesses that makes it difficult for them to kind of understand their role in the whole trial process?
Well, first of all, I think there's a misconception that when you say public speaking, people think, oh, well, I don't stand up on stage and give speeches. And that is not what public speaking is. If you leave a voicemail, that's public speaking. So, one of the areas that most of us don't engage in is being on trial or being a witness on trial. And it's a
Right.
whole different thing. So,
Right.
first, you've got the nerves kicking in because what do I say? I hope I don't say the wrong thing. The second thing is, when it comes to public speaking, there are two reasons why people don't do well. One is fear, and the other is ignorance. So it's mindset and skill set. And that's what I work on when I work with people. So the first part is if you're afraid, you avoid. If you avoid, you're not doing it. If you're not doing it, you're not getting good at it. So that's the first
Right.
thing. The second thing is lack of skill. So you might step up, but if you haven't been trained or coached, or if you've never read a book and never practiced, you're not going to know what to do. So let's talk about what happens on the stand and how people sabotage themselves. You can have somebody who is a perfect witness in terms of their experience, their content, their message, but they sit there or stand up and then all of a sudden their eyes are all over the place. So if you're looking up
Right.
every time you're speaking, the audience thinks that you don't know, or you're fabricating, or you're not sure of your message. So the first thing is you want steady eye contact. The second thing is you want to know where to look, and that should be determined by your attorney. If the
Right.
attorney's
Right.
saying look at the jury or look at me, take that to heart and follow what your attorney says because they know and they're prepping you. Another part is voice. If you're speaking like this and we can't hear you, the message A doesn't get through, and B, you sound like you don't really believe it, like you're not confident. So it's really important to take in enough air and project your voice so everybody in the jury can hear it. Another thing, you don't want to rush. You don't want to sound like you're an auctioneer. Some people just
Right. Right.
garble. It's like one run on sentence, then they do this, then they do that, and nobody hears it. So you need to stop and let it land so the jury again can hear and understand what you're saying. So if you want your message to have impact, you must pause every now and then. So those are some of the things. Now there's also the visual component of how are you dressed and how are you comporting yourself. So,
Right.
if you're slouched down here, you just don't sound like a credible witness. So use your full height, sit up straight in the chair on the stand, and then with your attorney, let them know what you're wearing that day, because depending on the type of case, that can make or break your credibility. So if you come in flip flops with a tank top, I don't even know if they let you in the courtroom looking like that, but you won't be as credible. Clothes do make the man or woman in a lot of cases. So be sure that you're dressed properly for that particular situation and that your clothes are pressed, that your shoes are shined. Everything makes a difference. So those are a
Yeah.
few of the things to keep in mind.
Well,
The
that's
other
great
piece
tips.
is listening.
Right.
When somebody is asking you a question, first of all, take a moment to pause
Right.
so that you
Right.
understand the question. Don't just blurt out your answer.
Yep.
There's no reason that you have to have a knee-jerk response. So
Right.
take a moment, understand what's being said, and then speak. So you can be thoughtful, but just don't be looking all over the place and humming and hawing, because if you use a lot of ums and ahs and you knows, people again don't think you're really that credible or confident. I know
Yeah.
this is a lot to take in,
Right. Right.
but you can do this with practice. So when you're on the stand, you don't want that to be your first time. You want to practice at home. What is
Right.
my message? How do I sound? Even record yourself during a practice session just so you hear how your voice is coming across.
Right. Yeah.
Does that help, Jason?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you took a lot of like big concepts. And I don't mean to interrupt you, obviously, because all these are fantastic tips. We're gonna probably do a weekly podcast on this stuff, but really wanted to go back to the beginning. So you were talking about eye contact, right? So that's obviously very important, and a lot of times we tell our clients to really balance, right? between not looking at jurors and looking at jurors too much, right? So you don't want to look at them to the point that think you're intimidating them, but you need to make eye contact with them. And I told them, don't look at the court officer, don't look at your family, don't look at me, don't look at the judge. The jury is who you need to convince, okay? In the situation where it's a judge, if there's not a jury trial, it's a bench trial, just look at the judge, because they're the fact finder. They're the ones determining your credibility. So I generally tell them to rotate. First question, first person, second, and then naturally they kind of get into a flow. So I think that's really important. And I loved your tip about just talking about speed and pace, right? Because most people speak fast. They think they're speaking slowly, and they actually need to even speak slower. So the recording thing is such a great tip. We all have phones now, and you can record yourself and watch it back, or send it to a professional to really get that cadence down to
absolutely
make it clear. So that's a really good tip. One thing I wanted to ask you about is what tips do you have to help someone get over the fear? The fear is such a big thing. Like how do you kind of motivate, inspire, or kind of coach someone to get over that fear?
All right. So when you're being nervous, truly nervous, you're being self-centered because your focus is on me, myself, and I. Oh, I hope I don't forget my train of thought. Oh, I hope I don't choke up. Well, get over yourself, because this is not about you. It's about them. Your focus should be on the jury. How can I help them to understand? You're a witness for somebody, and their life can be in your hands.
Right.
So it's not about you. It's like, what could I say? What do I know that would be helpful? So that's the first thing. You need to change your mindset. Secondly, confidence is in the breath. And when we are nervous, what happens is we hold our breath. All right. So the first thing is, before you even get on the stand, you can be doing some deep breathing, putting your hands on the abdomen and taking a breath and having a long exhale quietly. You can do that at home. You can do that before it's your time to be on the stand. I think jurors and attorneys and judges know that witnesses are nervous. It's not unusual. So don't put so much pressure on yourself. And again, with a little practice at home, you'll do fine. And know that this is more of a conversation. So if you think of yourselves as, I'm just having a conversation with juror 1 and juror 2 and juror 3, you'll lose your self-consciousness. Again, focus on them.
Right. That's great. There was this, not to make light of the situation, obviously, with trials, but just public speaking in general, there was this poll that came out many years ago that said more people are afraid of public speaking than dying. So they were saying that at a funeral, people would rather be in the coffin than actually give the eulogy, right? So
that's Jerry Seinfeld, yes.
Right. So that's a funny situation. But so that's not what you do with your day job, though, right? Diane, tell us about your day job and when people should be going to your website.
I work with people, with leaders who want to show up more powerfully so that they're clear, confident, and influential. And so how do I do that? I may be speaking on a stage, giving a keynote or a presentation. I might be doing workshops. Right now, I'm doing a lot of virtual presentation skills because it's hard for people to use this medium.
Right.
And I also do one-on-one executive speech coaching and media training. So I might get a leader who needs to get to the next level, but they either don't look, sound, or act the part of the leader, and I help them to get to that next level. Or they may be at a level and they're floundering, and I help them to succeed and thrive at that level. And it has to do with executive presence. So I get a lot of calls in that area because you can have the knowledge, but if you don't have the demeanor, if you don't know how to influence, if you don't know how to present yourself, it can have negative repercussions. And even when you're interviewing, same thing. It's like, how are you showing up? So it's all about showing up powerfully. And then I'm also the author of a book called Knockout Presentations.
Tell us about it, Diane. I definitely wanted to ask you about that.
Well, it's in its 3rd edition. I wrote it like a seminar in a book so that if you can't work with me, it's the next best thing to having me there, because I put in all the skills, all the tools. There are checklists, there are do's and don'ts, there are templates, and it's very practical. One of the things people continually tell me is, this is not theory. This is not like a textbook. I can actually read it and then do it. And some people said, oh, I actually wrote my speech based on what I learned in your book. So it's a great tool. It's been used by some colleges, and also it's been read in the C-suite.
Oh, that's tremendous. And now where can they get this book on your website?
They can find it on my website. You can go to Amazon or any of the online stores, and some of the Barnes and Noble physical stores have it as well.
Yeah, I know we're out of time today, but Diane, next time I definitely want you to come back to talk about, there's this talk about having more Zoom trials, probably not in the criminal context, but definitely want to get your best tips in terms of how to prepare a witness for that and what witnesses should be expecting and how it's different than in person.
Yes. And you can, for an additional tip, you can go to my website, duresta.com, and I have a free audio course there, 7 Deadly Mistakes Speakers Make and How to Avoid Them for Maximum Success, duresta.com.
Perfect. So we'll also embed that into the comments here if they just want to be able to click on it. So definitely look out for that. So Diane, thanks for coming in today, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thanks, Jason.